Okay, so we are already into week 13, right? We're almost done, definitely in the home stretch for the semester. It's been a trying semester, right? A lot of things have been happening this semester that we don't normally see in a semester, but you'll get that sometimes with summer, particularly with an online class. Things kind of sometimes they work out that way, but everyone's done a real good job to hang in there and keep working through some difficult times. So let's go ahead and look at what we're up against here for week 13. We're going to continue building on what we've been doing to this point with talking about getting into the job market and everything entailed with that. So, in looking back at last week, what we did, we talked about beginning the job hunt process. So, kind of figuring out who you are as a person, right? We had talked about your personal brand, we talked about who you were as a person and trying to figure out who that was. And then we talked about how that applies to this idea of the career fit and the two-way street. The two-way street, of course, being not only are you providing a service for your employer, but the employer should be providing the service for you as well. You provide for them, they provide for you. It should be a symbiotic relationship, as we talked about last week. So, taking that in mind, we started to look differently at the career process itself and this idea of career development strategies. We said that it's not necessarily the same as it always used to be with that traditional style where we kind of grow roots with one particular organization or one industry and we work there for like 20, 30 years and everything. We say, well, it's really not that way anymore. It's a lot more loose than that. We don't tend to really do those. And we talked about the protein and the boundaryless style. With the protein, how we branch out a little bit more. We're more in charge of what we're doing. We're not relying so much on our employer for education and understanding and perspective. We're really taking the reins and doing that on our own. And then that boundaryless style was like, man, I might not even stay in the same industry. I might move around geographically. I might move from industry to industry, from company to company. Really, there are no boundaries that are keeping me from doing a particular job or thing like that. I'm here to learn as an individual and to grow as an individual and not let my vocation define who I am. And then we talked about career anchors and we talked about different perspectives, right? The RISEC test that tells us what kind of person we are and everything like that. So, a lot to think about from last week. And I hope that you understood, at the bare minimum, that what this is doing is giving you perspective so that you understand better who you are as an individual and what's going to make you happy. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the paycheck, it's about being happy with the job that you're doing. So we did have a few different components to work on last week. You had the job activity, which I'll be looking at here. You're going to be using the same job ad that you did for that activity. You're going to be using for the resume and cover letters this week, like I told you last week. So hopefully you held on to that. You did get in your groups work on checkpoint activity 3. That's the meat and bones really of the presentation, the 4-phase training program that you'll be doing. So I'll be looking at those, getting you feedback on those so you can start working on getting that put together as good as possible for that final presentation. Stu Kent chapter 5, the reading that you had there with the Simternship as well, and hopefully you're enjoying the Simternship. That's a new wrinkle that I have put into the class, so we'll see how that works out for everybody. Hopefully there's some benefit to that. So this week we're going to continue talking about entering the job market, but now we're going to start looking at the actual application process itself. We're talking resumes and cover letters at this point. So with the applicant tracking system, the thing you see there, the ATS, some of you may have heard of these before. Essentially, it's software that employers are using now to, for lack of a better term, weed out the people that are applying for jobs at their organizations. They'll use algorithms, different keywords, different structures that is pre-programmed before the employer sends out the job ad and everything like that. And your resume and cover letter need to make through that applicant tracking system so that they can be seen by human eyes and then kind of get in that way. So what we're going to talk about this week, we're going to look at applicant tracking systems. We're not going to dig into the algorithms and the software and the behind the scenes stuff like that, but we are going to talk about them conceptually and talk about how we're not here to really try to beat the ATS. We're here to work with it. It's going to provide us with the parameters for what they're looking for. Let's work within those parameters and everything like that. We're going to talk about resumes, how to create a resume that is a solid resume that works with an ATS. Same thing with cover letters. We're going to talk about how to create those. You're going to follow the life and adventures of Jasmine Ortiz as she goes through this same process of crafting a resume and cover letter that will work well with an ATS that she's going through. So that'll be there for you in the textbook reading. So as far as textbook reading, you will be doing chapter 11, which again, that's going to cover ATSs, resumes, and cover letters. It's an interesting chapter for that example of Jasmine Ortiz, a character that I created that has that Pixar style. Hopefully you like that. We've got the activity folders that you'll have to access the resume and cover letter activity folders. Of course, every activity folder has an activity sheet in it that explains what is expected of you, and it will have an evaluation sheet in there. The evaluation sheet for this week is kind of a skeleton of what we'll be doing when we grade the assignment, where it's kind of just an Excel spreadsheet that I'll be doing, where I'm kind of shifting gears on how I do that, but you'll see that in there. And then they'll also, for both the resume and cover letter activity, there will be a sample. So you will see a sample job ed and resume for that Jasmine Ortiz has come up with, and you'll see a sample cover letter as well that Jasmine Ortiz has come up with. All right, so as far as graded components this week, you do have obviously the resume activity and the cover letter activity. So make sure you're getting started on those, asking any questions if you have them. Take your time and really read through that activity sheet. It really does a very good job, I feel, of really explaining both of these assignments to you so you don't really have any questions. A lot of step-by-step instructions. And then as far as Stu Kent components, you do have the finishing up of the Stu Kent Simternship, those rounds 6 and 7. Again, hopefully you've enjoyed those. It's a new wrinkle that I put in, so hopefully that's had some utility for you, and it's given you some insight into the job search process and everything. All right, so we are definitely in the home stretch for our final thoughts. We've only got a couple weeks left, so we want to make sure that we're working and doing as much as we can and asking questions as we go. Finish up that Stu Kent Simternship this week. Keep working in your groups. Don't lose contact with your groups, and give me any emails or any questions that you have as far as that goes. And we're going to have 2 checkpoint activities next week. Both of them are fairly short. It's just kind of wrapping up the presentation and everything like that. The big work was done this week, this past week, I should say, with checkpoint activity 3. That was the big work. So activity 4 and 5 will be next week. I'm giving you a break from those this week so you can focus on those resumes and cover letters and working through that. Again, as always, if you have any questions, please email me at brandon.schweitzer@albanycollege.edu. Everybody have a great week, and I will talk to you on the next one.